Mike, alcoholic. Glad to be sober today. And I'm grateful for God's mercy instead of justice. And I believe if I received justice, my best case and scenario of my thinking would be y'all sending me commissary money. Yeah, that's the truth. I believe that with everything in me. I've been spared. You know, I was drinking coffee with my mother. I probably had 3 years of sobriety. Her and my dad were my last friends. Period. And I was sober 3 years and we're drinking coffee and they live in Dallas. And that sweet woman reached across the table and said, Alcoholics Anonymous saved your life. And then she said, your father and I didn't think we'd live long enough to see you sober up. How powerful is that? She just turned 95 August 29. You know, one time I lived in Houston and they lived in Dallas, Plano actually. I didn't go home or call for 5 calendar years. Oh, get your mind around that. See, I never hurt them people. I never done nothing to them. I never stole nothing from them. Never cussed them out. I never done nothing to them folks. It's the way my thinking rolls. And then we lost a son 2.5 years ago, and I watch a mother next to me weeping. And the ripple effect that happened at my family, my mother didn't know if I was alive or dead. She made my father pack a bag and go down to Skid Row in Houston off of Congress and look for her son. But I didn't do nothing to them people. I didn't see that when I sobered up in my first 4-step. I promise you that. It was years before I seen that. And now with Gloria and the death of Jake, it's like, my God, I think my father loved me because that's what fathers do. They love their children. But I don't think he liked me. And he died in 2015. And I had 20 years of sobriety. Right at 20, 21, whatever. I sobered up when he was my age, 68, 67-ish. I would give the truck I'm driving out there, and I would walk home to drink 1 cup of coffee with that guy and let him know today that I'm sorry for what I did to his family. And I made amends to him. I was a good son. He said, I don't want to hear it. Call your mother. What he told me. When he died, I looked at him. I didn't feel like I owed him anything or he owed me. There was nothing. It was a peaceful going of my father. But by God, today, with some time and a little bit of age on me, I would love to just say that to him. That's all that would need to be said because he would see my heart just like y'all have. I would be able to convey that to him and mean it. Not like I didn't mean it when I made amends to him before. Anyway, I brought my book up here. I'm not going to bore you with it. It looks good. Somebody comes up, you got your book. I did make a little list of some stuff that I want to talk about. I've never done this. I've always shot from the hip. But Gloria suggested it, and I'm starting to do what my wife suggests. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. No, that's not true. I believe that's a very good thing. I believe that women's intuition is something that I wasted for a lot of years. Ain't nobody out to get me. I had a friend of mine, last Sunday, Gloria and I were on the porch at a little place we bought. And sitting out there drinking coffee, and I've been wondering about a friend of mine, one of my last friends that's alive. All of them are dead. All died of liver cancer, shooting dope up in the 60s and 70s. That's just period. Done some devastating things. And I hadn't seen or heard from her. And I got a hold of her. Somehow Gloria got her through Facebook, one of her friends, and she died a year ago. Now I'm going to tell you a story about Leslie. She ran with me for years with another woman named Melinda. Melinda died of AIDS. We had a little deal going. They would go turn tricks and locate where the immigrants were at. And then me and a buddy of mine would go in and take their money on Friday night. There might be 30 of them holed up in there. Now, how do you make amends to that? My sponsor told me there's no way. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of people here. Be nice to the immigrant, Mike. It's the best you can do. But anyway, man, you the taper, man. Y'all remember the yellow pages when you open it up and you see most wanted in there? Their picture was in it one time. Anyway, she was in Austin and they was burglarizing a hotel when they still had the big TVs. They got busted, went in front of the judge over there in Travis County. And the judge said, we're tired of you. Been to penitentiary 4 times already. Gave her 35 years in Goree. Non-violent. So a non-violent sentence like that, she got a job on the outside driving a tractor. And she's smuggling in 1 ounce of heroin once a week. And they're making her go to AA meetings once a week. And she's sitting on Saturday in an AA meeting nodding off of heroin in Goree Penitentiary. 2 years passes and she heard the message. Think about that. Sobered up and stayed sober to the day she died. Isn't that remarkable? So I guess you can get it from osmosis if you just hang around us long enough. I was born in Louisiana and we got to Texas as quick as we could. And I've been here most of my life. I know y'all heard Gloria speak. You know, I get an opportunity to, and I'm going to be scattered. I'll tell 20 stories. I'll probably end 10 of them. If you want to know more, just remember to ask me after. I'll be glad to sit with you and finish it. Won't let the truth get in the way of a good story. But anyway, I know y'all were here for Gloria. There was standing room only. Free food, and my wife brought them in here. And I had an opportunity to sit back there and listen to her. It's the only second time I've heard her talk. She talked a bunch. I just didn't want to hear her talk. I didn't want to know all the facts. And I got a moment in my heart that's special to me. I got to fall in love with my wife a little bit more. Listening to her story. This is how we met. I'm out in California talking. Second time I talked, they shipped me and Walter. Y'all know Walter Hall. They flew us out to Palms 27 Palms Marine Base out there. They had a big conference. And there were 2 Texas people out there and another group called the ABC group in Indio, California, about 300 strong, big group. They called and said, we heard you got 2 Texans over there. One of them we heard was crazy. Send him. So they told me, Mike, go to Indio. I talked over there and they called me back the next year. And I talked. And I've had the opportunity to talk all over the country. Never fraternized. Been given hotel keys. I've been given notes. Never, ever, ever have I fraternized. I'm a respect of Alcoholics Anonymous and respect for me. But my wife saw me. She was at that meeting. And I don't remember her, like I said, I don't fraternize, but I remember the dress. Now get back to my shop, and the phone's blinking, and it's Gloria. She called my shop. And I called her back. I said, okay, this is Mike. He called me. And she said, I know it's going to sound crazy. She said, I feel like if I don't make this phone call, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. That was her first words to me. This is my second words to her. How much time you got? Nothing happened. 6 months goes by and I'm going on a motorcycle trip with a friend of mine. Was with the SEALs. We were going to Coronado. And we come real close to Gloria's house and she texted me. And I said, I feel that you're close to me. Are you okay? And I don't know who it was because I done deleted all that stuff. And here we sit. We just celebrated 10 years of marriage. Yes. July 18th. I know that's short term for a lot of folks in this room. You know, the marriage turned around, my life turned around when I made a decision that I was going to be a good husband for Mike. I wanted to know what it was like to be a good husband. And when that happened, our hearts did like this. Boom. And they never stopped. Serious love affair going on here. And I know y'all didn't want to hear about that, but I didn't want you to miss that. What in the world am I doing up here? How in the world did I end up here? For one, I want to thank you for inviting me up here to talk. I like listening just as much as talking, I promise you. But I do want to let you know that I'm one of you, and I want to thank you for giving me a life. From the bottom of my heart, I mean that. Nobody wanted to be around me. I didn't have anybody left when I got to y'all. Period. They were gone. Just mom and dad, and they were a long ways away. I got forced into Alcoholics Anonymous through the law. When I say alcohol, a lot of times I'll refer to solid or liquid. So just know that when I say alcohol, there's solid and liquid involved in this. I'm like Waterfront Joe. Started out a wino, ended up N.E.O. Joe Crawford. Do y'all know Joe? A lot of y'all know Joe from the Humble House. I started the Humble House. I was detoxing one time out at the Northside 24. Years and years ago, probably 86, maybe 87. And a guy named Tugboat Roy was running the place. Does anybody remember Tugboat Roy? It's a long, like 40, 50 years. Anyway, Tugboat Roy was the manager of the Northside 24, and he got sick the day I got there and had to go to the hospital. And guess who filled in? Waterfront Joe. That's before he had the Humble House. And I was telling somebody, I said, he don't like me. About that time, he said, Mike, grab that vacuum and start vacuuming. I said, see? And that old Plymouth, somebody loaned me a Plymouth Fury. Didn't have no good tags on it. Back in them days, y'all remember when you can take model airplane paint and update your license plate. And I had a flat on somewhere out on 610 up there by the North Side 24. I had 4 Maypops on it, and one of them popped. And I called over at North Side 24. Guess who answered? Waterfront Joe. You know what that old man did? He came over and got me, bought me a tire, and helped me put it on. I also did a speaker meeting at the Wheelhouse for about 6 years. I'd bring Joe out about every 6 months. I'd bring the same old timers out. He never said no. I'd call him and he'd say, how you doing, boy? I said, I'm doing good, Joe. I was Big Mike back then. Walter gave me that name, Iron Mike. God introduced me here. He said, we got too many Big Mikes. We're going to call you Iron Mike. Walter gave me that name about 25 years ago, something like that. Anyway, when I got out of Harvard, 8th grade was the best 3 years of my education. I'm here to tell you. My parents were married 62 years, but you wouldn't know it by my behavior. I might as well have come from a broken home. I had a needle in my arm before I was 13. Grew up on the streets of Pasadena. We were talking about Pasadena earlier. Never went back home. Reform school, penitentiary at 17. Just a horrible childhood. I can't imagine anything worse. Missed all the dating years, all that stuff. Missed it all. Then you guess who I blame? My dad. Now what the heck? He didn't have nothing to do with it. He wasn't even there. But I blamed him. Till I was probably 25 years old, I thought I was adopted. Got out the penitentiary right at my 21st birthday. Hit the streets running. Went up to live with my folks. Lasted about 2 weeks up there and had to come back to Houston. It was calling me. And I stayed on the streets until I came to y'all at 37 years of age. I would like to say that it was successful, but it wasn't. I was an iron worker that was sleeping on the slab. I slept on the concrete back in them days, right next to the gang box. That's where they keep all the tools. Foreman would come in the morning, he'd kick me a little bit lightly, very lightly. And I would wake up and he'd give me some tools and I'd go to work about 2 or 3 o'clock. I started asking him for a draw. Get me through the night. I don't know if anybody can identify with that. That rocked along for a little while, and then I met me my first victim. Buddy of mine's sister, ironworking partner of mine's sister, and she had a house. Come on, work with me on this one. And we fell in love. And I moved in with her on my catty house. I didn't stay in it very much. Come home one night, pulled her out of bed, hopped up on things, and been drunk probably, I don't know, twist top wine for a week, up for a week. Beat her up pretty bad. Thank God she called the law on me, and they arrested me. And I get down here to Harris County, and I've got a domestic aggravated assault on me. I used to just say in the meeting, aggravated assault, leave it like that. Let y'all think maybe I whooped some banditos or something. I was ashamed of it deep down. Truth is, that's what's happened. One of the best things that happened to me. I get down there and I get a paid lawyer. I never had a paid lawyer. I get an appointed lawyer, just like I've always had. And it happens to be, this guy happens to be a good lawyer. And he tells me, I think we can beat the case. And I told him he didn't want to, something he didn't want to hear. I said, I don't want to beat it. See, I'd been to jail a whole bunch between when I got out the penitentiary and when I beat Cindy up. That's like 8 years had passed. 9 years had passed. I knew Reasoner real well. The police knew me down there real well. I would make promises to myself. When I get out of jail this time, I'm going to get me a job, and I'm going to get me one of them rooms in that boarding house. And one day I'm going to have a car. And I'd hit them streets. Before I'd get down the steps of Reasoner, I'd done recognize somebody. I'm hitting a brown bag, and it's over. Gloria was real clear about that, and everybody in here is real clear about that. I will lie to myself until I pick up that drink, and then I know the truth. It's too late. The DA was a woman. And I told her, listen, something's wrong with me. I don't know what it is. I'd been one meeting in the penitentiary. I'd forgotten about that. And I wasn't even old enough to drink. But I told her, if y'all got help, I need it. If not, send me back to the penitentiary. And I was okay with that. Real okay with that. And she told me, Mike, we're going to help you. And I said, thank God. We're going to make you pee in a cup 3 times a month. Report twice a month, blah, blah, blah. 2 months goes by, and I ain't drinking after I get out, and everybody else seems to be. And I got Cindy in the back. She ain't living in that house no more. Did I mention that? This kind of line up with Waterfront Joe. You live with me. When you first marry me or first get hooked up with me, you got about 3 or 4 pickup truck loads of stuff. When I get through with you, you can put everything you got in the apple box. And you ain't got no home. And that was Cindy's case. She's living with her mother over in Spring Branch off of Blaylock. And I got out of jail, and them kind people let me go over there. Live with her, her mother, her sister, her son, her sister's 2 sons, Granny, Bubba, got a beard down to here, did a shot of dope too big one time. He's looking north-northwest at all times. Looked like a coon might pop out. In a 2-bedroom apartment. And I'm 2 months out of jail on a domestic aggravated 10 years probation. And I got her in a chokehold in the back, the closet, and she's screaming bloody murder. I cut her loose, go out there, everybody's home. Wouldn't you know it? They're all standing behind the mother. We call her Ma. They're looking at me like this. One screaming in the back. I mean, it's a very chaotic scene. And she said, Mike, there's a meeting right across the street. Spring Branch Club is right across the street from them old crappy apartments right across. You think they're crappy now. But anyway. And I threw my hand up. That means no more talking. And she'd been going to Al-Anon since I married her daughter. I didn't know that. Screwed that up. So she went out on a limb and she told me, she said, Mike, I think they're playing dominoes over there. See, I need a direction. I don't know about you. I've always never had direction. I've always just kind of spontaneously act on something. I never had a dream of having a family or a career or a home. Those thoughts never entered my mind. And I know this entered a lot of people's mind. I'm just telling my story. That never entered my mind. So I went over across the street because I needed to leave. Everybody's looking at me, she's screaming. And I go through the parking lot and almost didn't go in. You'll hear if you stay around here, I'm talking to the guys out here, I don't care about y'all old timers, y'all have heard my RBS for years. We'll laugh a little bit, but I want to talk to the guys and the women are just new here. But I went through that parking lot, and you hear people when they get here, they thought it was a bunch of low-down, under-the-bridge winos. That was not my thinking. I walked through that parking lot and seen all them nice cars. I'd never owned a car. And I thought to myself, a bunch of hoity-toities, and they're not going to let me in. And I almost didn't go in. Thank God I did. See, I got to ask myself a question now as I look back. How in the world is it? How many times have I said I wasn't going to drink again? How many promises did I make to Cindy and any other victim that I could get a hold of? I was a good-looking guy in my late 20s and 30s. Big bull man. I had plenty of victims, plenty of women that were volunteering to put me up. How many times did I promise I'm going to be a good father? I'm going to be a good husband. I'm going to be a good daddy. You just give me a chance here. I got it and I believe it. My thinking was I'm going to pull myself up by my bootstraps, put my nose to the grindstone and be a good man. And I set out to do that. And I could do that for a while. That's the tricky part of alcoholism. The shame of what I did when I was drinking will keep me sober for a month or 5 weeks, 6 weeks. What alcohol has done to me, The bruises are still there. People are still running when I walk in the house. I'm staying sober, going to work on that shame. What happens is I'm up there on the iron and I'm watching all these iron workers every Friday chip in and buy a case of beer and go down to the stop and go and drop the tailgate down and crack them a few cold beers, maybe even smoke some weed and talk about what they're going to do with their families that weekend. And I'm watching them do this, and I'm full of shame and guilt. I'm lining up with page 73 in the book. I'm living a double life. I want people to think Mr. Big Shot, good daddy, but deep down in my heart, I know I do not deserve it on any level. And it's eating me alive and I don't even know it. And 4 or 5 Fridays go by, and I've been a good daddy. I've been taking them to the zoo on the weekend, working homework, took her to church, going to the movies. And I've got to get off that iron, and I got to go chip in on that beer because I got to let them guys know that I'm a good man. Somebody needs to know that I'm a good man. And I want to let them know that I'm going to spend time with my family just like last week. I'm going to take them to the movies. I'm going to take her to church just like last week, the week before. I'm desperately wanting to fit in. Line it up with page 30 of the big book. I don't want to be different from everybody else. I want to be like these guys. And then I crack that beer open and I don't even know I'm sick. I have no idea that I've got an illness that's going to kill me. And I take that drink, and you know what? All them guys go home. And all them guys go do what they're going to do with their families. And I can't stop. And then come Thursday or Friday the following week, I come dragging in after I've done probably broke in the house, stole everything, done my deal, and one more time I make another promise. Pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization that they talk about, we pull that like a gun in here. They're not talking about when I'm drinking. They're talking about when I stop drinking. I'm demoralized. I'm ashamed of what I've done. And I start making these grandiose promises to myself and whoever will listen. We're begging of you in Alcoholics Anonymous, just like the book says, we're begging you, please be thorough and fearless. The way to do that is get a sponsor and have him help you open the record book up. How many times have you tried to stop? If you're one of us, we have got a solution for that. I'm here with a living problem, an alcoholic problem that I have no solution for. And here I sit, a free man today, with wreckage just beyond 30 years, man. 30 years and 7 months and a few days. I don't even know where it went. I blinked, and here I sit. What a wonderful life you've handed me. You know, I went over to Spring Branch Club, and I got my walk back against the wall. I get in there and they ain't playing dominoes. All right, you know how God works. They're all going to a meeting, and I get caught up in between them, and I don't like people like touching on me, man. Gloria will tell you to this day we can't even go to a concert. I've got some kind of phobia, and I don't know how to say. Excuse me, pardon me. I don't want to go. I don't have that skill level. I don't. Not at this time in my life. I don't. I got this skill level. That's all I got left is bust you upside the head. That's my self-esteem. It's in the right overhand. That's my self-esteem. Period. So I shuffle in with all them people, get my wall back to the wall, keep an eye on everybody, and I'm looking at the exits. I just got through choking somebody across the street, man. I'm on aggravated probation. And there are 2 guys cheering to me, big bull males, man. One of them got a cowboy hat on. Good looking guys. I ain't paying attention to them. And all of a sudden, the guy with a cowboy hat turns and says, "Pardon me," and his voice raised, and that caught my attention. And he turned real quick. He said, "You two having a conversation. Don't let the door hit you in the ass. We're trying to have an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in here." And I thought, look at him. I don't remember what happened after that. Next day, I was at that meeting. I wasn't there to get a sponsor. I was there to see if any more action was going on. Might be doing more than talking, and old Mike will get in on it. That's how the loving, merciful, non-justing God got me to stay. That's how he brought me back in the rooms for the second time. That was my introduction to your loving fellowship. I was hoping there was going to be a fight or something breaking out. And you know that didn't happen. What happened was, I stayed around with y'all for a little while, then I went out and got drunk. Then I stayed and got drunk. Then I hit a detox and got drunk. And now I ain't got nowhere to live. Because Ma, Granny, Bubba, Cindy, all of them done that to me. And old Mike's in the weed patch. I ain't got no home. And I know some of y'all's been in the weed patch. And you can only take it so long and you reach a little bit of refuge in a detox. And by the time I got to the wheelhouse, it was my 12th detox. And you didn't have to be the head cashier at Walmart to figure out something was real wrong with me and I was going to die of alcoholism. And I knew it. You've given me the information. The detoxes were getting closer and closer. At this point, I am really trying to stop, and I cannot. Probation officer breathing down my back. All kinds of hot checks and just horrible trail behind me. And I end up over at the wheelhouse. And I just need to get a little meat on my bones. And a couple of good nights sleep. Because I was convinced alcoholism was coming knocking. And it wasn't going to be long. I could open up my record book. And it was coming. Funny thing happened. I was there about 10 days and I was contemplating leaving. That's the old wheelhouse. Remember the old, some of y'all remember the old wheelhouses on blocks. Detox had held 6 of us. That's it. Now we're housing 72. A little bitty shack, man. And my last wife, at that time, came by. She had 7 years in the program. I had 10 days. And she had an old Carhartt jacket of mine, had holes in it from where I'm welding iron working, just an old crappy jacket. It was in mid-November of '89. You remember how cold it got back then? It got down to 7, killed all the fish in the bay. But she brought me my jacket as she was leaving the state. And she didn't come by and say, "Thank you, Mike, for abusing me and having a child with me and abandoning me." She came by to give me that jacket and to carry a message to me. And this is what she said. As we sat in front of the wheelhouse, that big roll where they keep the wire, old table, anyway, Google it. And she said, "Mike, God's given away grace. You don't have to whoop nobody for it. You ain't got to hog nobody for it. You ain't got to steal or con nobody for it. He's given it away." And she got in her car and she left. You know, I went back in the room, in the sick room at the wheelhouse, and got on my knees, and there's the prayer I said. I said, "Dear God, whatever grace you're giving away, give it away to one of these guys that can accept it." Because I was convinced I couldn't. I'd like to tell you the next day I woke up and cool breeze was blowing. Doug come crashing through the window and landed on my shoulder. That ain't what happened. Nothing. But I did make a decision. I said, you know what? Maybe I should try dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's. And I rocked along. I got 10 months on that sober date. Went back out. Lived in a buddy of mine's barn, basically. Had a dirt floor, roosters. I'm from the city. And you hillbillies, I know there's a few out there. Why does a rooster crow at 3 in the morning? It's the middle of the night. The sun ain't even around. The sun's in China. Anyway, come back in, picked up a little time. Then I picked up a chip on 3491. Picked up 2.5 years on that chip. Good chip, man. Chairing the meetings at the Wheelhouse, doing a big book study at the Wheelhouse. Alateen sponsor. I was Alateen sponsor for 7 years. You know, I would sit with the Alateens. My sponsor at that time, his wife was a Al-Anon, big Alateen sponsor herself. And I would sit with the kids, and after a while, I'm like a picture on the wall. We're not controlling the meeting, we're letting them do the meeting. And I'm going to tell you something about the kids of an alcoholic, because I got 7 years with the Alateens. They do think it's their fault. Know that. They think it's their fault. Isn't that remarkable? Anyway, I took that 2.5 years, went to Spring Branch Club to hear a meeting, speaker meeting, didn't like the guy. Burn off, instead of taking a right, going back to the Wheelhouse, I took a left and went off Airline, Cavalcade, a little beer joint over there. Sat in that beer joint for 2 hours, but I finally picked one up. Went around back, had a little old cage around back. Get you a little of that solid alcohol, help kick it in. One more time in the insane asylum for Mike. Come back in after a solid whooping, which I'm grateful for. And my sober day today is January 30th of 94. I got a bunch of them. Took me 7 years to pick up that last chip. Is that a requirement? No, but I'm the one up here telling my story. That's my story. It's what happened to me. And I'm grateful now for every drink I had. Do I wish things would have been different when I was a child? Yeah, I'd have probably been something other than what I am now, but I wouldn't have met Gloria. I wouldn't have met y'all. My God, man. I had a friend of mine die about 8 weeks ago. His name was A.B. Humphreys. Some of y'all might have known A.B. He was like my uncle. I got 2 people sitting over here. We go to a conference every year together. I don't like the Yellow Rose. I hate their food. It's horrible. Bring a sandwich. We go for one reason only. To see you and spend time with y'all. That's the truth. That's the honest to God truth. What a privilege. You've given me uncles, cousins, brothers, dads. So let me roll on. I picked up the last chip, and here's what it looked like. I was went to the steps with a guy named Spencer Andrews from the Wheelhouse, dead and gone now. Big player at the Wheelhouse. He took me to the steps. In less than 60 days, I was complete through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay? He went in for an operation, and he died on the operating table at 49 years old. And I got me a girlfriend, because I didn't have nowhere to live. Her name was Sonia. I called her Junior. And me and Junior had an apartment. It was all bills paid. And over in Pasadena by the Legacy Club. And Spencer died. And I was playing baseball for that Legacy Club. Very good hardball player. And fell, slipped, raining. I slipped and broke my arm. Wasn't my fault, it was Rain's fault. And I must have said something mean to Junior because she left. And I'm sitting in that apartment, and them people, I don't have nothing. I ain't never had no credit card, bank account. I ain't never paid electric bill. I never owned a vehicle. I'm talking about I'm somebody that ain't ever had nothing, man. And she ain't even gone 2 or 3 days, and here they come to the door. I opened the door, they said, leave. Bottom line, we don't know you, we don't want you. So I got a newspaper out. Google that, some of y'all. And I opened up, looked in the want ads, and I found a place in Bay Cliff, Texas, a house. Now, you know this is God. I ain't never rented nothing in my entire life. I didn't know where Bay Cliff's at. You don't get far without a car. It's only 18 miles down the road in Pasadena. I go over there, and the guy is going to Africa in 3 days, and he has to rent the place. He doesn't check nothing. He lets me rent it. $450 a month. And I ain't coming to the wheel. I'm working the iron. Got me a cruddy old truck, but it's new to me. Now I got a vehicle. And I'm not driving to the wheelhouse every day. There's no way. That's ridiculous. I can't do it. I can't work the iron and go to the wheelhouse and come back and work the iron. There's no way. So I go to a meeting called at the Creek. Y'all ever been to the Creek Club? Well, if you've been lately, it's not the same one that I was going to. They weren't hooked up with GSO or nothing. Outlaw club, big time. So I made a decision. I'm going to go over there and start making meetings. Sure enough, I get over there. And my first meeting there with them outlaws, 6 o'clock at the Legacy Club, and you're supposed to be sitting down with your coffee. Don't be getting up to go pee. You should have already peed. That's the way it was back then. It was structured. I get over at the Creek, get my coffee, sit down. 5 till 6, I'm on ready. They're all up, joking, smoking, grabbing each other's ass. 6 o'clock, smoking, grabbing. 6:05, smoking, grabbing, mingling. 6:10, they start the meeting and they do it wrong. Excuse me. As soon as the meeting was over, I run to the payphone, called my new sponsor, because I'm wanting to be sober now. My sponsor died. I went and got another sponsor before they buried him. Without a sponsor, it's like I'm a boat in the water with no rudder. Oh, I'm floating. I just don't know where I'm going. One of these days, the barge is going to run me over. Well, anyway, I called him and reported him. Told him everything I'm telling y'all. And he listened. He listened, man. He said, "Are you done?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Listen up and listen very closely." I said, "Okay." He said, "I want you to make that same meeting for the next 90 days. I just, boom, I hung up. We're done with this conversation. Well, I was too scared not to do what he said. Alcohol, liquid or solid, had beaten me into a state of reasonableness. I was starting to taste friendship, fellowship. Gloria read it. I'm being welcomed. And the taste is like honey. It's so sweet. And I do exactly what he tells me to do. And then people got better after 90 days. Yeah, pretty much. You know, I have been active. I pulled some pretty comical stuff in here. I'm there at the Creek Club for 4 years. Now I'm still chairing a meeting at the Wheelhouse. Every week I'm at the Wheelhouse chairing a meeting. Going to the Wheelhouse probably 3 or 4 times a week. If you show up at a detox, you better be ready because they need you. And I'm doing fifth step and fourth step and working guys through the steps over, hundreds. Ad nausea. About 4 years passes, and I'm going to the Wheelhouse, all men, and the Creek Club, bunch of old mean men. Sit down, give me coffee. Too scared to do anything. I done tasted the honey, brother. I ain't gonna buck. Okay? Yes, sir. 2 lumps? Yes, sir. Well, they had a room out there back then called the Half Measures Room. That's where all the old timers played dominoes before the meeting and between the meeting. It's open 24 hours a day back then. One day I made a decision. There was a new club started, Bay Area Club. And I heard there was some girls up in there. I'm 4 years sober, man. I make a decision here. I need to make me some kind of spiritual move. Wheelhouse, old mean men, put a big old X on that. So I went out in the Half Measures room before a meeting after work, and I said, listen, I'd like to talk to y'all, and boy, all the dominoes go down. And now, with my time, I'm realizing I'd put my domino down. Let's listen to crazy man's talk. And I told him, I've reached a plateau here, and I'm going to move on. And they did what old timers do, smiled and put their dominoes back up. I went to Walmart, got me a shirt, went to the Bay Area Club, my new Walmart shirt on. Meeting was starting, I got my chair, got it on the back wall, cocked against the wall. I was looking good, man. And the chairman starts talking about predators. Swear to God, I thought he was talking about me. I get up and run up there and pop him out of his chair. The chairman, I knocked the chairman out of the chair in the middle of the meeting with 4 years of sobriety. Walter, my sponsor's he's there. Him and Big Al. The guy takes off when he got back up, and he runs to the payphone in the back. Well, I'm following him. I'm trying to explain to him, look, man, I didn't hit you. I just kind of popped you, man. And he's dialing 911. And Big Al steps in the way. He says, don't go in there. And I said, yeah, but you don't understand. He said, leave. Me and Walter will take care of it. And so I left. And as I was leaving, the cops were coming in. And Walter and Al were the last ones in the parking lot sitting on Al's truck bed. And they were the last one the cops seen. The cops come out there and said, listen, everybody keeps saying it's an anonymous program. They don't know what the guy's last name is. And the cop said, I don't suppose you'll tell me. And Walter told him, listen, we police our own. We'll take care of it. The cop said, you know what? We're done with it. See you later. So I go straight back to the Creek Club. And they're still playing dominoes. They're probably on the same hand. And we don't have no cell phones. And I go back and I let them know that I've changed my mind. And before I could get it out, about halfway through, one of the old timers said, shut up and sit down. We've already heard. I guess they telegraphed them. I don't even know. That was my 4th year. I had a lot of trouble in my 4th year. A lot of physical trouble in my 4th year. And that was a shaming act. I shamed myself amongst my peers. Thank God for the Creek Club. Thank God for the old timers. Because in their own way, in their own time, they pulled up a cup of coffee and sat beside me and said, listen, Mike, I did this in my early sobriety, and this is the way I worked through it. You know, I was going to leave. I made up my mind. I was fist fighting a lot in my neighborhood. But that's another story. And that act I pulled at the Bay Area Club, I told God, I said, listen, I hate to do this, but if you don't show me a sign I'm loading my truck up with my motorcycle, then I'm heading north. As soon as spring breaks, I'm headed north. 2 weeks later, my landlord called me and gave me my home. He called me. He said, listen, my wife said she loves you. I said, I don't know your wife. He said, Mike, we got 34 rent houses. We've never had anybody treat a house like you're treating it. I roofed it, added on to it. People say, what are you doing? I said, I'm adding on to my house. That's not your house, Mike. I said, well, I never owned a house before, and if I ever owned one, or if I ever lived in one, I didn't want to sit on the couch. I wanted to put a roof like the men I'd see when I was coming out the alleys or walking down the street. And I wanted to add on, and I wanted to have a nice house. I wanted to put a flower garden. And I did those things. And I called Walter and said, they're offering me the house, Walter. What do I do? He said, tell them you'll give them $40,000 on 7% interest. I didn't even know what that meant. And I called them and told them that. And we went down and did the paperwork ourselves, and it dropped it down to $350 a month. And I paid that house off. And I bought the one across the street. And I bought one in Chambers County. And I bought two in Houston. And I bought one in San Jacinto County in a 30-year span. Get your mind around that. Does that mean anything to the new man? Absolutely not. But I'm telling you, this morning I woke up at peace with myself in my home, with a wife that was next to me that loves me. Nobody's looking for me. I don't owe anybody nothing. The only deal I got going on is some kind of stuff in this area, man. Now, we could call Walter. He's up because I called him on the way over here. We always pray together. And we could put him on speaker. And I can ask Walter. He just picked up 50 years July 3rd. And we could ask him, Walter, when does the crazy thinking go away? And this is what he's going to tell us. Mike, you have to find somebody a little bit more time than me, son. Because as far as I know, it never leaves. And then he follows it up with a fact of Alcoholics Anonymous. We learn not to go up there anymore for the answers. And we do that through practicing the 12 steps and sponsorship and sponsoring people and being around the fellowship. I learned to be a good son around y'all. I learned to be a good daddy around you. I learned to be a good husband around y'all. Learned to be a good employer and a good employee. I got guys working on a motorcycle shop. I didn't plan that. I'm a bee mechanic. You don't want me working on your stuff. Better call Uber. Better yet, get an Enterprise. Fell off a crane, got busted up real bad. Had to do something different. So I started a small motorcycle shop and a storage facility. Who would have thought it had gone to this? I'll retire next year. It's big. Bigger than I ever thought. Who'd have believed it? I wouldn't. Only in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've witnessed it. There's a guy here earlier, he's already left. He's sitting over there. And I told Lana, I said he's probably worth $100 million. He looked like he just come out the weed patch. Alcoholics Anonymous. Aggravated robber. Come in here and sober. Almost 30 years now. The example's clear and cut. But for the new man, this is what happens. I heard it from a wheelhead, and this is the most truth I can give you. My mind lies to me, and I act on it. What happens is I stay sober, like I said, 4 or 5 weeks at a time, maybe 2 months, maybe a 3-year stretch in the penitentiary. But when I get out, I believe a lie, and I pick up that drink, liquid are solid. And I kick in an allergy that I cannot stop. And I'll continue to do that over and over and over again until I can clean up the shame and guilt trail that is behind me. And the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous do that. My ego will reboot itself on my shame. It'll reboot itself now in Alcoholics Anonymous on my success. I've got to be real careful about that. I love y'all, and I mean it. I'm going to end with something here. I only looked at my list once. Did anybody go to the San Diego International? There we go. We got a few hands up. Well, I had 6 months sober. Yeah, I had 6 months sober, and it was at Spring Branch Club, and me and a guy named Vince who has polio, he walks on them things, and another guy, we have a brainstorm. Let's go to International. Vince has got a van with them little bears on the side. Kind of group. What is it? Yeah, some kind of Grateful Dead little bears on the side. Anyway, we get in the van and we head to San Diego. We ain't got no rooms. Hell, we run out of gas once. I mean, we ain't got nothing. Vince has got money. We get there, and it's International. Every hotel within a 30-mile radius is booked. We go to the hotel right across the street from where the conference was at. It was like a suites place, Homewood Suites. And I go up to the desk and say, hey, we would like a room. And the lady said, okay, thank you. Yes, they just canceled. You can have their room. Can you imagine? Right across. Remember, got old polio. If you remember correctly, we're in Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego. And what they do at Internationals is every 5 years we have one. The next one's going to be in Vancouver. Yes. Yeah, and I can't go because of my record. So, but y'all can tell me how it was. But on Saturday night, they put all the old timers, now I think it's 45 years and older, in a hat. And they put them in a little section up front. We honor the old timers. And we got a gong on the stage at Jack Murphy Stadium. Remember that big old gong they had out there? And, yeah, that's right. And they reach in the hat and they pull out the name of an old timer. And the old timer goes around, gets escorted, goes up on the stage, and he's got 5 minutes, or she's got 5 minutes to talk. Not 5 minutes and 1 second. Okay? Got some newcomer with the gong. There's a woman that went up there, her name was Ruth. And this old woman sobered up, let's see here, she sobered up in 1944. And she had us all in her hands. You know the person that can do that, can grab everybody, and she had us in 4.5 minutes in her hands. You could hear a pin drop. There was 50,000 people in there. An old newcomer, bird dogging his watch, 5 minutes and 1 second runs over and gongs Ruth. I mean, gong. And they like drag her off the stage. And now we're mad. The whole crowd is mad. And we all start chanting, Ruth, Ruth. We're swelled up. We're gonna take action here. And they did what we're always gonna do in Alcoholics Anonymous. Bring up the next person. Pray about it. Go talk to your sponsor about Ruth. Ruth wrote a poem. I'm going to read the poem. If you want to get it, go on Google and put in Ruth's Prayer. And kind of, if that's not it, figure it out. It'll come up. She's dead now. She died with, 68 years of sobriety. She was 98 years old. Thank you, dear God, for another day. The chance to live in a decent way. To feel again the joy of living and happiness that comes from giving. Thank you for friends who can understand and the peace that flows from your loving hand. Help me to wake with the morning sun, with the prayer today, thy will be done. For with your help, I will find the way. Thank you again, dear God, for AA. My sponsor ends his talk with a song that I'm not going to sing to you. But he ends it like this. If you don't believe Alcoholics Anonymous works, try it. If you don't believe God will help you, ask him. Thank you for the invite.